Caci Morning News right here on Caci TV. We're streaming to you live from our studios here, so you can join us on our social media handles on Facebook and YouTube at Caci Television. My name is Selena Ikuya Abuaja. We'll be back with more stories right after this. Please do stay. Thanks for joining us. Let's begin with our top story, where the Finance Minister, Dr. Atufosin, has announced that the government will be abolishing the electronic transaction levy, popularly known as e-levy, and the 10% tax on lottery winnings, also known as the betting tax. Well, the minister announced this when he presented the government's first budget statement to Parliament as of yesterday, Tuesday, 11th of March.
The following nuisance taxes for removal in line with our manifesto promise. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 10% withholding tax on winning from lottery, otherwise known as the betting tax. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the electronic transfer levy, e-levy, of 1%. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 10% withholding tax on betting. We will abolish the electronic transfer levy, e-levy, of 1%. We will abolish the emission levy, otherwise as in Wusie tax. We will abolish the VAT on motor vehicle insurance policy. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 1.5% withholding tax on unprocessed gold by small-scale miners. Mr. Speaker, the removal of these taxes will ease the burden on households and improve their disposable income. Right, Honorable Speaker, the removal of these taxes will ease the burden on households and improve their disposable incomes. In addition, it will support business growth and improve tax compliance. Mr. Speaker, Right, Honorable Speaker, the tax refund account has been abused in recent years. In the last 8 years, a study revealed that 29.1 billion Ghana cedis had accrued to the tax refund account.
We're still on the budget during the presentation of the 2025 budget statement and economic policy in Parliament on Tuesday. The Finance Minister announced that the government is uncapping the Ghana Education Trust Fund, which is popularly known as the GET Fund, to ensure sustainable funding for free secondary education.
Mr. Speaker, the overarching concern about free secondary education has been its quality and the absence of dedicated sources of financing. His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama has resolved it. Mr. Speaker, let me take this again. The overarching concern about free secondary education has been its quality and the absence of a dedicated sources of funding. His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama has resolved the funding challenges by uncapping the GET Fund. Mr. Speaker, this makes available dedicated funding for full financing of free senior secondary school education and free tertiary education for persons with disability. Mr. Speaker, therefore, Capping and Realignment Act will be amended to uncap the Ghana Education Trust Fund.
Finance Minister Dr.
Mr. Speaker, another amount of 100 million Ghana cedis has been allocated for the payment of monthly allowance to all assembly members.
Well, that's from the majority side of the House. Away from that, meanwhile, the minority leader, Alexander Feyomakin, has described the 2025 economic budget presented by the Finance Minister as, and I quote, as our budget, unquote, and meaning a deceptive budget. He criticized the budget for failing to include the 24-hour economy and policy promised by the National Democratic Congress, the NDC, during the 2024 general elections.
Mr. Speaker, this afternoon we have been presented with part 2 of the lamentation series. The part 1, Mr. Speaker, the part 1 was Mahamanomics. The part 2 is Forcenomics. And it's very clear, Mr. Speaker, that under the economy that they complain about, the growth was 5.7%, and under the research economy, the growth is rather going.
On that, the minority in Parliament has dismissed claims that the Akufo-Addo-led administration implemented a betting tax before its recent abolishment in the 2025 budget statement. Well, this comes after the Finance Minister, during the budget presentation on Tuesday, announced the removal of several taxes, including the betting tax. Addressing a press conference, former Finance Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam refuted the claim, stating that the previous government never enforced any betting tax.
Ladies and gentlemen, betting tax that they said they have abolished. We never collected betting tax. We never implement the betting tax. So to come and tell Ghanaians that you have abolished something that was not implemented is to deceive the people of Ghana. My brothers and sisters, they are talking also about gold board. It's important I address this. The gold board, as you heard the minister talk about, is to be financed from the budget. The minister is allocating $279 million to the gold board. We have never funded the gold purchase program or gold for oil program from the budget. It's never happened. And so to fund the gold board from the budget, in our view, is just to put in money to be benefited by NDC cronies. It is to create loot and share.
Well, we're bringing you more updates in our subsequent bullets. Now, from that story, President John Dramani Mahama arrived in Burkina Faso as part of his good neighborliness tour aimed at strengthening diplomatic ties with neighboring countries. Well, upon arrival, he was warmly received at the airport by Burkina Faso's military leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré.
And how we can improve the transit trade through Ghana for Burkina importers who bring their goods through Ghana to Burkina. How we can improve the transit corridor so that they're able to do that without any disturbance. It's another issue we discussed. We've discussed the issue of AES and ECOWAS, and I've got new perspectives about the concerns that the three countries have in respect of their relations with ECOWAS. And so I assured Mr. President that at the next ECOWAS meeting, I would pass on what they have explained to me to the other leaders.
The Statistical Service has announced that the country's economy was worth CI 2 trillion in 2024, with an overall growth rate of 5.7%. Well, at a press conference, government statistician Samuel Kobina Inim made this announcement, giving specifics on the nation's economic performance so far.
Perspective, the economy grew by 1.1 trillion Ghana cedis in the year 2024, and from a non-gold perspective, GDP at current prices was 1.08 trillion Ghana cedis in the year 2024. From a constant GDP perspective, that is when we take into consideration actual changes in the value of goods and services in terms of quantities and having discounted for the effect of price increases over the period, the 1 trillion Ghana cedis that was recorded from a current GDP perspective reduces to just under 200 billion Ghana cedis for the year 2024. Specifically in the year 2024, Ghana's economy from a constant GDP perspective was 197 billion Ghana cedis for the period 2024.
Now, women's groups in Ghana have mobilized to seek justice for the late Joan Yabani following the murder of a level 400 student of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Well, the deceased Joanna, a biological science student, was found lifeless on campus on February 27 this year. Meanwhile, one suspect believed to be her boyfriend has been arrested after a CCTV footage linked a piece of clothing found in his possession to the crime.
Senia omotimi aso adwumanum aye ne yie ababa bedru sampempen so a chese yan twentwen so na chese etumi eche nipa sese yeguso eye nhwehwemu ewo ne ho efa asem yi nyina ho yepese yeda IGP ne police service ni nyina ase yebesa da ema omo nso so se omo mpese yebeyi omo afrim na ye nyina beba na obia kanasem na ye pia asem wi amna ye oman muni nyina asem enye anti rejoice ana say Joanna busuafo pe na enye omasem na say nyina behwe say ade wi ebetumi enya justice ewom na afi so no yetimi apema koye nim say emma epese yetimi adwuma ye bibia yasom ebedru yan ye nim say ntawa bia na se bibia ntochema ewo ye ho nti ye baaya na ye pese ye ka se ye behia biom a ye beye dom a chese ye tumi ede yasem abre IGP.
Now let's move to the Bono region, where Joseph Adai Akwabua, Bono regional minister, has pleaded to take decisive actions against illegal mining activity popularly known as Galamsey, commonly in the region, particularly around the Bo Dam and its surrounding environs. The minister made this pledge during a tour of Galamsey affected areas in Branham, Winchi, in the Banda district.
Regional Minister no Bosumia ni na information mbenyaye ene say illegal mining okoso wo Banda oni Winchi nti memma institutions bi eye adwuma bi maame nti na wo se me ne mpanfo security fo na me ne omoye adwuma no na wo se etu anamon na yeba ni ye de ni behwe ne yakoso already no ye wo coordinate a e kire babia beye garancy no nyina nti na ya aba ya behu bi mu nyina mo hu bi se bridge ase nyina be wo ho abeye garancy nti ye behwe ye na ye besen atrance bio se resec na anamon a ya hihya ye pese ye fa so edisi garancy ano no ye bekwa akọ review no ye besesem ne ye hu kwana ye befa so a sankrofo we ye be ma ba firi ye kwaye mu oda mo hwe kwana ye twapa beduru ha ya drive kwaye mu be ye duru 1 hour nti se bi hye ha o ye garancy a won hu da obakase bono de garancy bi ani ha pa garancy a ekoso wo ha no no ehye nti mesre ya hemfo no because information ayanya babobo ahemfo bi dina kire ye se be ne bama nkrofo bi chanafo on ya ganafo bi asase a se be mfanye garancy.
And as Santahene Otunfo Osei Tutu II has stripped off Nana Amofa Chumesi II, the chief of Impasaso number 2 in the Harford South district of his traditional powers for perjury, or the removal of his traditional powers, together with 4 elders of the traditional stool, took place at the Menchia Palace in Kumasi. The case involving the disused chiefs dates back to 2024, prior to the Santahene's ruling to resolve the chieftaincy dispute between the Kwana clan and the Adriana clan of the Akrodai stool.
Masempo Tumfo, ye can contempo. As my catcher, me buy a dear BBN who a basis. And rather, can contempo, and not the Americans to the Emma. No crab so bad, the Asumjeba. No crab bar, same BM, the Asumjeba. And until and Passaso, who Uncle Santa and Gazette. I call here for some. I call there and pass home from Passaso and a coy. Woman, you near can hear you dance here. Wabra was who name said. No more Pamoja move free or no Winchipani at Maboko. Because Mr. Who seems saying, one my head on a bar or 1 few and woman you and the bar, but win him. One bar, you could talk in Yama, make a show dano. Be anywhere, yes, I mean, some permanent Namaka, Yamaka, and then walk us about 2,000. I mean, Nina, Sika de Mamenka, Sika de Mamenka. We are Nina every year now, who dear dance here. So to Vondanka, una betu achimno esa se wona mpaso wo free mpasaso ansa na ye kwa akodie wo mu so nim se wo mu free mpasaso na ye kwa akodie enti wo mu ba ye nchi asa asema abane wo mu ye dia pa wan fi wo mu na ukodi adanse krum ma wo mu ane me ma wo sika abedie ene ka obenya ene nkontopo abetwa engu asanteman mas na de oye de hye okotwa nkoto na na se wujira mu nti wo mu so mpasaso de wo na free okwa okodi adanse and sa na tie sa na nan bi de to so na say there be and I'm so no pass number 2 your job din chi atwuma boko won free pass be ma se no free no ye den no akoye de hia akodi ado o say no be ho wa brabo nyina na ayi egu ha yi efi aduanan na ato a na say bone nko an wadi no obaya wo so de ba me nua panyin wo so aso osu yi ye wo hunu ye say wo nya de hia na wo ye ti na odo ba ye a wo nim say wo bokro no ti na odo ba e ba na anya ba bi jan so me fa no machi anan ma me fa no machi eti eni no ha and Yapamo no, na fe onya freedom na fe de and afa bro no fa. And now we dey na konya beto wa ko no oba no mboma kwata wa ye hima na utu no no. Efie dudu a utu no masa am na kodi hima. Na wo mom wo de akonwa to no akọ.
Away from that story, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, has voiced his disappointment over the lack of gender balance in President John Dramani Maham's cabinet, stating that any appointment falling below 30% benchmark for women are unacceptable.
To reiterate my earlier comment made on the floor of the House, that I am determined to hold the government to account in making sure that the provisions of this act are totally implemented. And so I'm using this platform to call the attention of the government and all stakeholders to pay close attention to the provisions of the act, particularly Section 14(2). Which provides that, and I quote, the President shall ensure the progressive achievement of the gender equity targets set out in the first schedule in making appointments to the following: A, ministerial positions; B, the Council of State; C, the independent constitutional bodies; D, governing bodies of state institutions; E, the public service; F, district assemblies; and G, any other office to which the president makes an appointment. 3 says, appointments under subsection 2 shall be in accordance with guidelines set out in the 3rd schedule of the bill. A copy is here. The baseline target set out in the first schedule for the 2024 to 2026 timeline is 30% for women into the institutions listed under section 14(2). That baseline 2024 to 2026. From 2027 going, we have upped the baseline. That's why we will welcome and endorse an above target achievement in making appointments. We will not accept anything below the statutory benchmark percentage. We have tarried long in passing this law. Let us not apply the same wishy-washy attitude towards its implementation. I am not impressed with what I have seen so far in the position of women in the leadership of 1, Parliament; 2, committees of Parliament; and 3, appointments to ministerial positions. I'm not impressed at all. Even the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection is not a cabinet ministry.